All right, so yeah, how you doing? It's Monday. Um, it's not December 6th, but you know, God, I wish it was. December 5th. It's December 5th. Yeah, so maybe that's why I put December 6th. I'll fix that later. Or you can just pretend you're watching the show in some time travel mode.
Or you'll think that we had 2 December 6th shows tomorrow when we actually put the right date on there.
Who would have thought that Johnny Gaudreau would lead a group on the night of December 5th to overthrow the entire NHL? I mean, that's just crazy. What happened last night? But anyway, let's so we're a really funny thing happened. Last show we were talking about this, what we thought was a fake Hockey Buzz account, okay? Which was called Hockey Buzzing, and I'm like, I've never seen that before in my life. So as we're doing the show, Mike gets texted that, you know, we've created this Hockey Buzzing thing.
Yeah,
it doesn't tell us during the show. Granted, lets us continue.
Captain EO was perpetrating a coup d'état of the Hockey Buzz hierarchy because him and Ty Anderson were putting together this Twitter feed, and then we found out, and I was doing some investigating. The Hockey Buzz, just at Hockey Buzz, was dormant since 2011.
I created it back then when Twitter was created, because I wanted to have it. I wanted to own it, and I knew that, but we never used it. So
it was interesting because when I got the notice that I was followed, I noticed there was only 5 followers, and that's why I brought it up, because I'm like,
yeah,
it can't be only 5 followers. You guys are better than that,
right?
But apparently, it was so new that it literally had just started up that second.
And my guess is that the people who created it at Hockey Buzz, the great people at Hockey Buzz who created it, just started following our bloggers, right? Which makes sense.
Well, can we follow Noel? He was like, they're not even following me. I'm on this website. So can we make sure we follow Noel, whoever's running the account?
As you Islanders people just never get any respect.
None
whatsoever. I'm wearing, in honor of this, I'm wearing the vintage 2012 Hockey Buzz sweatshirt.
Well,
actually, I think mine's cooler, but
Oh, that's nice too.
Oh, wow, that's impressive. Where'd you get that?
Friends at Adidas.
Is that Magneto's helmet? That's really what it looks like. And I think Magneto's helmet's really cool, so I like it. But that's really what it looks like.
It's a mixture of that and like the Boba Fett look and all of that.
Did I tell you what I liked about it was this? Like, people were ripping the logo, and what I liked about it was
I like the logo. The logo's much better than the name.
Your names, yeah. I mean, there's a little bit, to me, it's a little bit of a throwback to the Golden Seals.
Well, no, the fact that they didn't clear it, now the Army has a problem because their parachute team is called the Golden Knights.
Yeah, so that's going to go through, though. That's not going to stop it, they said.
But you would have thought if there was this whole thing about the Black Knights and it being part, the
right.
Army, that they would have checked to see, is there any conflict with Golden Knights?
You know what there needs to be? I'm gonna decree this right now, because this needs to be the way it is forever. We need to have a certain number of things that just exist in the world, like a panther or a coyote or a knight or a flyer, for example, or just like.
Well, you know what the NHL could have done? They could have called up London and said, "Look, we're using the Knights. Shut up."
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. I mean, there's a Kitchener Rangers and there's a New York Rangers.
Yeah, but you can't do that in the trademark world. I know a guy who does literally.
If the NHL called the owner of London and said, if Gary Bettman said, we need to make a deal here,
right, you don't want your guys in the AHL, do you?
Yeah. That's a great point, Eck. That's a great point with the new CBA coming up.
Well, I'm all for another sports franchise being nicknamed the Bills, because maybe they eventually will friggin' win.
Hey, anytime I do #Jets, I always hear some snarkiness, and I'll probably be doing it tonight, even though that's a losing cause. But my basic point is, though, the NHL would come off looking like corporate bullies if they tried that. And Dale Hunter and his brother probably wouldn't succumb because
Dale Hunter. Oh, Jesus.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but that's who you'd be dealing with.
There's nobody in the NHL world that hates Dale Hunter.
Dale Hunter will go to the NHL offices and high stick Gary Bettman in the head.
No, I mean, the reality is, the NHL has more
It's called negotiations. They could have negotiated.
Yes, I think they could have, and I think London should have just gone. I mean, for London, it's great. What the hell? Make some kind of, I don't know.
You probably could do something like a shared copy.
Right, do something. It's Canada first off. Their copyright's in Canada. That's
right.
So put that on there. But all that aside, what I liked about the logo was, like, when I was a kid, and I'm sure we all did this as kids, you drew your team's logo all the time on your book covers and stuff like that. Like you drew it, right? And
some Hartford Whalers.
Right. Little Hartford, you got really good at drawing it. I got really good at drawing the P.
I did Islanders, Rangers. I would cheat though. My dad, as a printer, would get me.
That's ridiculous.
No, hold on. He would get me tracing paper because I was a lousy artist. So I would use the tracing paper and it would come out great.
I think it took me 10 years. It took me 10 years to realize there was a hidden H in the whale's tail and the W of the Whalers. And one day I saw it and I blew my mind.
My dad would get me graph paper from school because he taught at a technical high school. Plus, I had the compass and I had things like that because I wanted it to be exact.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Isn't that so funny? I mean,
you guys needed to get out more.
I would have it match the pennant. I would literally put the tracing paper over the pennant, and I would trace it. That's what I would do.
That's perfect. Yeah. See, like Mike probably has one of these drawings somewhere.
He does, and it says right underneath his "I Heart Austin."
Right.
Sketches.
When I was a kid, I would keep my own statistics, and this was the cover of my Leaf book.
Nice.
What did your girlfriend think of that?
So did you draw?
Who's that, by the way, Dan? Who?
What did your girlfriend think of that?
Huh? I don't know who you're talking about.
Exactly.
It's like saying, "When is your button?"
Some way.
No, but all right. So you're really giving Mike a hard time.
Russ is joking. I'm not making fun of you today. I'm just going after Mike.
I appreciate that.
Hashtag Mike Stats.
I need a day off from that. Thanks, Dan.
Yes. We need to find Mike some love.
Oh, Mike gets plenty of love.
Yeah.
All right. So,
is there like a Leafs match.com for Leafs fans?
So that it's called tank.com. All right. So anyway, but what I like about the Knights logo is you can draw it. It's a really cool drawable logo. Like it's something that I can see a kid getting good at drawing.
Yes.
Sure.
Throw it out there. Where some things are just like the Wild logo and like I mean, the Oilers one was tough to draw. I used to draw that all the time. It was really hard to draw, but it was the Islanders one.
The Blackhawks.
Yeah, the Blackhawks.
I wouldn't even go there.
Everyone who tries to draw the Blackhawks looks terrible. It looks ridiculous, right? Yeah, any kind of like resemblance of it. And the Penguins one, that's another one that's really hard to do. It's hard to draw a good penguin these days.
Rangers logo take it 30 seconds.
Right. The
Islanders
was tough.
The Atlanta Flames was fairly easy. The Canucks was
the Islanders was a little tricky, yeah, but the Flames
was a little tricky because of the Long Island map. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I like the Atlanta. I have the Atlanta Flames jersey over there. I love that. So that's what I like about this. I think it's simple and it's got like a presence to it, which is cool. So we'll go with it.
The Habs emblem was easy to draw and easier to burn.
Right. Which also had an H in the middle of it, by the way.
Yep.
They go along with gold, but it meant different things. That's pretty funny about that, right? Yeah, it meant totally different things.
Okay.
Because the H in Canadians means habitants, and Whalers means hockey, we assume.
Hartford.
Oh.
Let's start the show.
Yeah, it's time to start the show.
Let's start the show.
All right. There we go. This can all stay in Mike. I don't have my bell anyway.
Precious brain cells as we move on here.
My bell's nowhere to be found. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, December 5th, 2016.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Dan Petru.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching Hockey BuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you today with more talk about Ryan Spooner than ever before. And why not, right? So our, it's always good when one of our buddies in the media puts out a rumor so we can talk about it. Something different. And so Ryan Spooner apparently been on the trade block for a while now. Talking, and a couple teams, the Islanders, one of them, Dan, rumored to be interested in Ryan Spooner.
Is he a center?
No.
He plays wing.
He's playing when he played against the Flyers a couple nights ago. He was fourth line winger.
And this is the funny thing about that, because the asking price for him was according to report, among the things needed in the deal would be a second line player.
No. Except he's not playing the second line.
He's not a second line forward himself.
The Islanders need someone with a proven resume. If they're going to trade for somebody, and if they're going to trade, I have no problem trading assets and picks and established players, but I want someone who I can look at the book and I can write in 25 goals or 30 goals or 25 or 50 points.
But here's, what the problem with that is, Dan?
Yeah.
They don't have enough on their own roster to trade for that.
Yeah, they could trade for JVR.
They would have to trade young assets. That's the only thing they have.
They have 7 or 8 of them. You can trade one of them.
Well, one of them won't do it anymore. I think it will probably take one of them and a roster player.
for Ryan.
You think Hamonic in a draft pick couldn't get JVR?
It's possible,
It's
but
possible.
I
but
think that could get done.
if you take the comments of Mike Babcock this morning, and coaches, general managers have to say these things. If you look at the Leafs situation, and guys like Bob McKenzie and Darren Drager have been saying the last couple weeks that it makes sense for the Leafs, not right away, but maybe at the deadline, maybe over the summer, to move JVR since they have so many young wingers. And Babcock came out this morning and said, I think there's been a bunch of talk. I just talked to JVR. I just said, play hard and don't worry about it. We're not looking to move these guys. One thing I know about in sport, the truth today isn't the truth tomorrow, so you can't spend a lot of time worrying about that. That can be taken both ways. Right now, they don't want to trade him, but on March the 1st, if they get offered a top defenseman, they're going to move him, because the Maple Leafs right now, they've got stockpiles on the wings. They have a good young center in Austin Matthews. They have Kadri and Bozak up the middle. They have too many wingers, and I don't see them at 29 years old signing James Van Riemsdyk for $6 million a year. So, because they're going to have to spend money on Nylander and on Matthews and on Marner at that point. So I think that they will probably move JVR, but they could move one of the young guys for a defenseman. But right now, Babcock's mindset is let's try to make the playoffs. But in mid-January, when they're 500 and they're 6 or 7 points out of a playoff spot, that's when things will change.
But here's the other thing, too. Regardless of the salary, Hamonic's play has dropped off.
It's been horrific.
Horrible play.
It's been horrific. Yeah.
Horrible.
It's not been good, but there's still value there. And
there's value, but I'm just saying.
Especially his contract, too.
Sure, but it's not what it was.
He also came back 2 weeks.
Here, now it's here.
I think he's been terrible. I think he's been the worst player on the roster. But at the same time, he was supposed to be out 6 weeks with a broken hand and came back at 14 days. Yeah. So is that something that could be still bothering him? I don't know. But, he's still a good player. He still definitely has value if he was available.
Going back to Spooner for a second, I mean, the report over the weekend said that one team that might be interested in him was the Vancouver Canucks. Benning being a former assistant GM in Boston. I think he probably had something to do with drafting him or at least scouting to be drafted.
Yeah, I wrote that today too, and I did not hear that report over the weekend, so I thought I was writing something special, Mike. So now you've destroyed my whole sense of being.
You'll probably get a second-round draft pick. That's all you'll get.
Yeah.
And that's not bad. That's not a bad return for Spooner.
No, if you want to get rid of him, that's what you're going to.
Well, they could trade for Alex Burrows. We know he would fit in. He'd fit in well with the Boston.
There's not many players.
Now playing the role of Milan Lucic, Alex Burrows.
Yeah,
no, right. Milan Lucic looks like a choir boy next to Alex Burrows.
Right. Speaking of choir boys, Jonas Enroth has been placed on waivers, and he is. I
am so mad. I spent $2 million on him this year. Now I got nothing.
Really? What, $2 million in your draft?
Yeah, my fantasy, because I had no backup. I had to get somebody. I figured, Enroth, he'll play a little bit.
I would have thought so too.
Yeah, that was a solid move. Yeah, absolutely. You would have thought that he would have got some play.
You want to back up on a bad team is always a good move.
Yeah. I understand the reasons why Enroth right now he's winless in 4 games. He's played in 4 back-to-backs for the Leafs, and he hasn't won a game. His save percentage is under 900. And based on the comments of Babcock after the game in Calgary on Wednesday, the last Enroth start where he gave up 2 goals in the first 49 seconds, he basically said, the team wasn't ready, but the goaltender wasn't ready either. But this is scapegoating. Their defense.
It is scapegoating.
All right, but who's their backup going to be, Mike?
Well, I think that this is leading to Kari Ramo being.
It is leading to Kari Ramo.
But the thing is, we don't know right now, and we'll find this out tomorrow around noon, whether Enroth's contract is being terminated. If he's got a deal in the Swedish league or something else,
right,
we'll terminate the contract and he'll be free and he can go someplace else. If it's simply him being demoted to the minors, going to the AHL, I think they only have 1 spot right now under the 50 pro contract limit, and I don't know whether they're going to sign another goaltender. Maybe they bring up Bebo, maybe they bring up Garrett Sparks, but I don't think either one of them are capable of being an NHL backup at this point. And right now, the mindset of the Maple Leafs is we need somebody who can give us a better chance to win in these back-to-back games. That's why I think you're right. I think it's going to end up being Ramo.
Yaro Halak. There you go.
Oh yeah, we got a $4.5 million backup. That'll make.
We'll eat 20%. What's the most we can eat? We'll eat it.
50%.
I think Ramo is going to be the guy. I mean,
it does sound like Ramo. Yeah.
Very close to being cleared, and
he's been practicing with the team for a month and was given a stall at AC.
These are just subtle signs.
Yeah.
Is there anything above an E5?
Yeah, right. There is. He's been given a stall, been fitted for a uniform. He has.
No, he was given a stall a month ago. Ak. I mean, this is when he was when he was rehabilitating his knee. He was given a stall at the Air Canada Center and at the practice facility.
What about Brandon Prust? Where is he located?
He's in Germany now.
He is okay.
Yeah, he signed with the German team.
All right.
Oh, that's good. That's a good move for him.
How can I get action on this? If I can I call up somebody in Vegas and say that by March 1st, Kai Ramo is the starting goalie for the Toronto Maple Leafs, has won the job outright, and is taking them into
won the
get
job.
Action with us. We'll take that bet.
Yeah, we'll take that bet. What are we throwing out here?
March 1st. All right. Well, we'll come up with some terms, but that's my time.
That's fine. We're willing to take that action. You don't have to call anybody.
Mushrooms.
Because I'm a Kai Ramo fan, and I think this is a
little bit
all appropriate.
There is something else I wanted to bring up Islander-wise. Watching the third period and that overtime.
Oh God, the first 40 minutes were good.
Yeah, and I missed that. But
of course you did.
I know. But here's the thing, and this is coaching.
Yes, it
Why
is.
would players try and block shots in overtime? It's too fast. There's not enough players. You screen the goalie. Like, this is the one time where you don't try and block shots, and the Islanders did, and that caused the problem for Halak. He really couldn't see the puck very well.
Also, John Tavares took a 2-minute shift and had nothing back. Couldn't get back into play. I mean, that's also coaching.
That was the other thing I noticed. Their shifts were too long because when Zetterberg had the puck, those guys were heaving.
Yeah, they had nothing left.
Yeah, they had nothing.
Yeah, and it was pretty obvious. I mean, but
it's 7 points in the last 7 out of the last 8 points. It's baby steps for them. It's 3-0-1 in their last 4.
Well, that's what you want to do.
That's
That's the one. That is the glory of the point for an overtime loss is that you can slowly work yourself.
They tied it with 3 minutes to go, so it's like, okay, all right.
You get your point. You go home. I know. No, I agree. We're gonna definitely chase that more. The rumor there with Ramo, and of course the rumor with Spooner. And I do think there's something to the Vancouver thing, which is fascinating because of the fact that we are really. It's not even being kind of. Even they're not even pretending that there's no disconnect between the management and the ownership in Vancouver. There is unbelievably the ownership is almost as if the ownership, and I'm not saying they have said this is total. I've seen a situation like this before, so I don't know what's happening there, but I've seen a situation where a star player and an owner are talking to each other, and star players and the owner saying, "Don't worry, we're gonna try to go for this for you," and it's almost as if I'm not saying this is happening with the Sedins, but this is the feeling that you get. It's like we're here. And the owners fall in love with their star players. They're like a prized Cadillac that they have in their garage,
right?
And they're going to make sure that star player is happy, and that's why the Canucks aren't rebuilding, in my opinion. Now, like I say, I don't know that this is happening in this situation, but I've seen it in other situations.
Oh, it's true. I mean, clearly that's why they went for Eriksson. But
yeah, right. They went for Eriksson because that was who they wanted to get, and they went for Eriksson.
What does it say about Boston, a team who's not necessarily racking up goals? Who Ryan Spooner played huge minutes for last year. Now that they're willing to discard him, it's not like their offense is great either.
No,
it's very top heavy. It's the top line. They're a 4-player team offensively.
Yeah,
well, that's another team with a lot of disconnects on it. Like Boston. And
I do feel like there's some people that want to go in one direction for them, and others that want to go in another. I definitely feel that.
I feel that too, and I think they're still kind of reeling from. The rift that existed with who's in charge now and Chiarelli before, and they seem to go out of their way. It's funny. It reminds me of like the Methodists and the Catholics, right? Like when I grew up, there was the Catholic Church and the Methodist Church, and my dad was a singer. Would sing at weddings at both of these things. He was like a soloist and would go and sing in Catholic churches, and then sometimes he would go to a Methodist church, which is what we were, and he would sing. And the Methodists would never let him sing from the balcony because that's what the Catholics do. You can't sing from the balcony in the Catholic Church, in the Methodist Church, but every Catholic sings from the balcony in the Catholic Church. So this feels like the Bruins have done so many things that are so opposite of what Chiarelli would have done before. It just feels like they continue to do that.
They're doing it almost out of spite. In a
It
sense,
feels like they're
right, and like they're getting rid of all his players too.
Yeah, and they've systematically got rid of his players.
They want to wipe. They want to wipe the slate clean and own the team as if like create the team in their own image. But the thing is, I don't think that
he also won a Stanley Cup for them. So
that's the thing.
Really
and that's the crazy thing about this, right? He won a Stanley Cup, and it's almost like they were probably pissed off when he won it because they were fighting even back then. And
he won a Stanley Cup. He fell in love with his role players who helped him get there, and he overpaid his bottom 6 forwards. He overpaid his bottom pairing defensemen, and I think that's what got him fired.
If they would have lost their that Game 7 overtime game against the Canadiens in 2011, Claude Julien was going to be fired. I would probably think that Chiarelli would have been pretty close behind him in that situation. I think that Cam Neely and Don Sweeney are trying to make that team in their own image and trying to move past the Chiarelli era. As for Vancouver, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. They won over Toronto the weekend. I think if it was, a few weeks ago, they probably would have jumped at the opportunity to bring in a Spooner to add to that team. Right now, even though if they're going to make a trade, it'd probably be on defense because Edler's out, and one of their other and Chris Tanev is out, so their defense is very thin right now. So if they're going to make a deal and expend assets, it's probably going to be for a defender.
Yeah, which brings up Shattenkirk, of course, always.
Just real quick, I watched that Canucks game and the Canucks Maple Leafs game on Saturday. That was a great game to watch. You talk about thoroughly entertaining.
Yeah.
No. I did want to show this to you real quick before the Shattenkirk. So this is the back of Anders Nielsen's mask, and he's got the Pride flag on there.
Oh, wow, that's great.
LGBT support. I don't know of any other sport that anybody's done that. Matter of fact, even when the NFL had their day yesterday where everybody could paint their cleats however they like, I didn't see one for that. So I got to give Anders Nielsen a big
he is of all the people I've dealt with in covering hockey, Nielsen's by far one of the best I've ever dealt with. He's had his struggles as a goalie. He's had his struggles with his health. I mean, he's had some horrible health issues, cost him about 1.5 years of his career. And so the fact that he's still in the NHL, it's just great. And that's just great what he's doing for the community that needs help. It needs support. And the fact that these players are willing to do that, that's great.
Yeah, and somebody pointed out because that picture was on Twitter, is that Robin Lehner apparently has some reference to Donald Trump on his mask.
Really?
So talk about one side and the other, but so
Robert Lehner's a unique individual. Let's move on.
Yeah, streak alive, Mike. Good job. Way to go.
It would be funny though if someone put on their mask. If someone put on the mask, like, because you're a goalie, right?
Right.
Someone should put on a mask of a wall, and then you can say you just have the wall on the mask. That could be. You
can just borrow Nikolai Habibulin's mask.
That's right. He used to have the wall. And you know who had a good one? You guys remember Cristobal Huey with the Nordiques? Yes. He had like the igloo wall. That was one of my favorites.
That was very good.
If Johnny Bauer wore a mask, he was the China wall. So there you go.
Although I remember people pointing out that in Huey's case that igloos pucks go right through them.
That's true, but that was one. I love that mask. That was an awesome mask.
Actually, that was a great. They just fit those uniforms so well too.
I got a photo of him making a save, and it's like he's looking right at the camera, and you see the whole mask, and he signed it right underneath. It's pretty.
That's
cool.
Awesome.
I don't remember what league he's playing in Europe, but Cristobal Huey just signed a contract extension. He's 42 years old, and he's
good for him. You can make a good career. NHL doesn't work out for every player, and he had a good career. But I'm just some of these minor league guys who are making 50,000, 60,000 in the AHL, then go live in Geneva or Munich, making 70,000, everything paid for. They're living in some of the best cities in the world.
Oh, I know. And if they're recently married or something like that, or just have there's no, and they don't have any kids to deal with, it's like they love it. If I've talked to people over there, it's like, my wife is so cool. She just wants to keep finding new places to live in Europe. I talked to one player who said that one time. It's fun.
I know someone who was toiling away in the Sabres organization, went to Munich, played there for 6 years, and it still lives there. He never came back. Loves it.
Yeah. No, it's very common. Johnny Gaudreau last night came back in true Johnny Gaudreau fashion, scoring on his first shot in his first shift.
I could have stopped that shot. Jonathan Bernier was horrible.
Just for full disclosure, I started Jonathan Bernier in DraftKings last night.
Ooh, shocking. Yeah, so
Yeah, I know.
there was a little story about Jonathan Bernier and as related to the start last night because I think he had given up 6 goals in the first 2 periods, and everybody thought that they were going to yank him and put John Gibson in. And Randy Carlisle after the game fessed up and said that John Gibson had a really bad case of diarrhea and could not go in the game. So Bernier had to suck it up for the team. And
enjoy your lunch, everyone.
You want your coaches to be honest, and he was honest. So you have to respect that.
That is good.
That is a lower body injury.
That is a lower body.
It's a lower bowel injury.
It's a lower intestine injury. That's the better line. The lower intestine injury. I just, it's very much. It's funny to me, and I know it wasn't a great shot or a great goal, but it's just these players like him have this thing about them that they do this. That you could have bet that he was going to score on his first shift. You know how it was going to happen, but you could just know, like you knew McDavid, and like just like in the same way you knew McDavid would come out like gangbusters in a game, or or Austin Matthews in his first game would be crazy. It just players like that just have a knack for this kind of thing, and it's
because the puck just seems to gravitate towards them.
Yeah. And it's hard to explain. It's really there's really no. They just know they have a sense of drama in them that just is like this is the time that I'm going to do it, and they just find another level.
Yeah, like the couple of days, like when Ovechkin had his last hat trick, as soon as he got that first goal, and then he had another shot that he just missed the net. And I remember I was at work and I was like, he's getting a hat trick tonight. And then like 7 minutes later, he had 3 goals.
Yeah, it's like it's crazy. He just does it. So I did get a lot of requests for us continuing the conversation we ended the show with last time, which was my theory of 32 teams. So I wanted to get Dan's opinion on it. We could move on after that, but over the weekend, I think you guys definitely.
I want to hear it. Let's hear it.
You guys over the weekend, I'm sure Mike and Russ came around that this is the best idea they've ever heard. So
let's hear it. I'm not familiar with this, so let's hear it.
Okay, so here's my thinking. Okay, we've got 32 teams in the NHL soon enough, and it'll get there. Quebec will have a team, and talking about how the playoffs would work, and a lot of people are talking about the play-in games or what have you. And all right, Mike, relax. So my theory is this: we have 4 divisions with 8 teams, which is not a big deal, but everybody makes the playoffs. Okay, and the thing there, here's what happens: if the first place team only has to win 2 out of 7, the 8th place team has to win 5 out of 7, and the second place team only has to win 3. The 7th place team has to win 4, and then after that, it just becomes a best of 7. But the idea that everybody makes the playoffs, but you have such an astronomical thing to overcome if you finish in 7th or 8th. So now you've also have left me, Dan. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm still listening.
Wouldn't this not be exciting? Just throw it on basic excitement. We would have 32 teams. We would have an extra round. Know how great the first round.
You're playing till August.
All you have to do is take out. Just have to start the thing in October 1st, as opposed to.
You can't have everyone make the playoffs. You just can't.
No,
you know what? It's a novel idea.
Such high hopes.
The idea is great. It's just it's ridiculously confusing. It's just ridiculously confusing, and it would never happen.
Imagine, it's not that hard to understand. And imagine now your team is finishing 8th, and if a team finishes in 8th and can beat a team that finishes in 1st before that team can win 2 games, that would be the biggest choke of all time. You'd have this incredible wow.
Then the regular season doesn't mean anything. You should just start the season with the playoffs.
I feel like the Brendan Fraser movie. I feel like somebody has frozen Eck in time, and he's come back 20 years from now with this great idea after he thought out. It just seems that way.
And Dan is playing the Pauly Shore role.
I will be.
Wow.
I will be vindicated.
I'll take that because Father-in-Law is a great movie. Or Son-in-Law. Son-in-Law is a hilarious movie.
Yes, it has the positive of having Carla Gugino in it. So any movie with her is pretty good.
Little America.
I think that if you get to 32 teams, that what's going to happen is you're going to have a play-in game. You're going to have basically 20 teams making the playoffs, but not.
I don't like that either.
Well, I'm thinking it's going to be a one game play-in game, and it'll get down to 16 after the one game. It's going to give that is, and Russ said it on Friday. That's a package they could sell to ESPN or TBS or something like that as an additional income.
I don't think you want TBS touching your sports, but
although I said I said it would end up on the ESPN app. I was a little snarky about it, but it is true.
I would rather see a tournament to determine the order of draft picks than a play-in games.
I see. I think that's ridiculous.
Nobody wants to do that. They're not risking injury for that.
Right.
What's wrong with just 16 teams? It's hard to make the playoffs, and then we'll just leave it at 16. I just,
No, I'm okay if it's hard to.
And by the way, once again, if you're gonna do these playoff games, stop being a media. What's the word? If the NHL would need to stop being a media prostitute, that's the nicest way to put that, and put the games on your own network.
Right. They need to be. I agree. That's 100%.
And I get that you want to make millions of dollars. Blah blah blah. You put those games on your network. You inflate your ratings. You can sell ad time. You can get presenting sponsors. And then the following year, you go back and say, "Look what we did. We can get more money now."
You don't. They are selling. They are selling advertising time. The Addiction Network is bought in big.
Oh, I was talking about the Novage, the thing you hook up to your nose and watch the snot just.
What I don't understand about the NHL right now in marketing is this, okay? It has to do with these games. When you watch the games on Game Center and they have that "We Are At" commercial thing,
yes,
okay, which is, I know why that is, because they're trying to sell those spots as well.
No, those are locals. You can't show. That's why.
Okay, but if that's the case, you can sell them. You can sell them to like. What about Hockey Buzz? Like we take a 30-second, like sell them to people. Sell them
that'd be great. I could do the commercial for you.
Instead of just watching, the game will be back shortly.
I could be one of these. Hey, the game will be back shortly. Yeah, I could be really super creepy too.
Wouldn't that be hilarious? Just have somebody sit there and say that the game will be right back shortly.
I think we should do a Hockey Buzz calendar. The Men of Hockey Buzz. What do you think? Mike could be reading his stats Maple Leafs book.
I think we're gonna end up with a lot of calendars, is what I think.
Hey, all right. So I've got something important now to mention.
Go ahead, Dan.
David the other day was pulled out of a game because of the concussion protocol, and apparently there's a video out there that shows him sort of being shocked that he's being pulled out. I love it. I love it for two reasons. One reason is clearly Connor McDavid has never had this happen to him before, so it is a little bit of a slight on junior hockey and everything and all of that has that involved, and even the NHL before this. And it does show that this is working in the NHL now. And I want players to be mad. I don't care. They need to be safe. The team needs to know that they're safe because players will always play, right? They're the worst person. They're the worst people when it comes to their own health.
Yeah.
They are.
Worst judge. Yeah.
Worst judge, yes.
Oh well, they're not even judging. They just won't.
They just won't come out. And so I think that was great that they did it, and I'd like to see more of that. And I think the NHL is doing the right thing with that because you do have to really be that intrusive. You do.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's phenomenal. And like I've said many times, it's not even that I care about the players in the league, which I do care about, but not that I care about them as much as I care about the fact that this gets out to parents of youth hockey and youth sports people in general. And that when McDavid's pulled, it makes sense. It actually becomes news. And then people realize that if my kid just got knocked over in a game or whatever, I think it's okay for the coach not to play him for the rest of the game to be safe versus, because Connor McDavid got pulled out of a game too. So that's, to me, that's the best thing about this.
You want to see consistency. No special rules for anyone. If this play happens, that's why I like how the spotters are independent. They're not paid by the teams or anything like that. Although
back in the day, your parent pretty much did that. Like I remember I was in a Little League game. I got hit in the eye, right? Fastball straight in the eye.
Yeah.
I was pitching that game, and I was pitching a great game. I didn't want to come out. My mother literally spoke to the coach and said he's leaving, went and said, let's go. We're going in the car, and I couldn't do anything.
That's good for her. I mean, I'm sure you wanted to absolutely kill her.
Funny is about being your own worst enemy, because you're right. We are. If you're playing, you're competitive.
Yes.
You're your own worst enemy. I'll never forget. I was playing in a city championship, New Britain, Connecticut, golf tournament. I shot even par in the front nine, and usually you stop and you would go get a drink and rehydrate. Blah blah blah. It was 98 degrees. It was the middle of July. I shot even par, and I said, I ain't getting anything. Let's keep going. And I went, and I broke the school record. I broke the school record for 18 holes in the tournament, and then I went straight to the hospital because I dehydrated. My mom did not care that I broke the school record. She chewed me out like relentlessly to the fact that then when she left the room, my dad's like, why were you so stupid? I go, Dad, I shot even par in the front. He's like, oh, I get it. That's all he said. He was like, oh, I get it. He's like, drink something next time.
Yeah. No, that's a good story because
that's how we're our own worst enemies. You know that we are our own worst enemy. If you're in the
I have
middle,
a daughter in my house right now who gets whacked around all the time in sports, and wakes up with saying I'm nauseous, my head hurts me, and I'm like, oh, what is that? And is it anything? And me telling her you're not going to play basketball today after school, you're not going to do this, whatever, and it's just like, and I have to be the bad guy all the time. But it's
you have to.
It's what you have to do, and it's really hard, And as a coach too, like we actually coach. I coach, as you guys know, youth soccer. We've had to tell parents sometimes we're not going to let your daughter play because she doesn't look right. It's just like it's not going. It's not. She doesn't look right. She does. She's not. She's not. She looks.
It's hard for a coach too when they're not your own kid. It's one thing to be the bad cop when it's your own kid, but when you're in charge of 20 or 30, that's such a tough.
It is, but you have to. The parents can sometimes be. There are parents who are definitely all, she's fine. Let her play. She's good. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, she's definitely. She says her head hurts her. She's doing that. There's all kinds of things we're getting. She's giving us signs. It's like, no, we gotta not play her. So
one of the saddest things I ever saw in my life was when I first started ESPN. It's probably early 2000s, and I saw Tom Jackson trying to walk down the hallway on a cold day. Because his knees, he couldn't walk down the stairs. He had, it was just one of the saddest. And I was like, okay. And then you see what happens to people, you see what happens to football players when they get to their 50s or late 40s. And it's just like, it was hard to watch.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Before we get out of here today, I wanted to give you our really good stat here for the day that I found that I thought was interesting, and that is the one player in the top 20 of all-time NHL scoring who's not in the Hockey Hall of Fame, which is something I wonder if you can figure out. It's not too hard, but it is baffling.
Do you know Cicerelli?
Nope.
No, Cicerelli's in.
This guy's number 12.
Yeah, you're right.
This guy's number 12, actually. So he's actually in the top 15 of NHL scoring, but there's only one in the top 20 that isn't in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and it's kind of crazy this guy's not in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and I don't understand it.
Well, all right. So Dave Andreychuk?
Is it somebody who's active?
It's not Dave Andreychuk?
Not active.
Pierre Turgeon?
Nope, not active.
Did you say not Andreychuk?
Not Andreychuk.
Okay.
Not Andreychuk and not active. Nope. He's won Stanley Cups. He's done all the things you'd have to do to win, to be in there. It's just like everything you'd ask for it. To be a top 15 guy even, and to have won Stanley Cups.
So he's top 15 in points.
Yeah, in points. I'll give you the exact number. Get this right here, but this is like
is Solani eligible yet?
Not yet.
He's not eligible yet, right?
Next year,
okay.
Yeah. Kent Nielsen?
Nope.
Is Mark Recchi eligible yet?
Mark Recchi.
Isn't he not? When did he retire?
He's eligible.
He's eligible.
Russ, is Kent Nielsen in the Hall of Fame?
He might be, actually.
It's Mark Recchi, though, isn't it? Mark Recchi?
It's Mark Recchi. Yeah. Yep, it is Mark Recchi with 1,533 points.
He suffers from the same problem that Andreychuk does. He's even though he's won, Andreychuk won one Stanley Cup. Recchi won what, 2 or 3?
3.
Yeah, he's looked upon as a compiler, and that's the reason.
Ron Francis was a compiler,
but he's compiled players that aren't on this list. The top 20 scorers. That's the crazy thing. If you
3 Cups, top 15. I'm sorry, you're right.
All right. Here's the argument against Ron Francis being a compiler. He was more of one of the top 3 or 4 best players on both times that he won the Cup, where Recchi with Boston was an aging player, with Montreal was a really young player, and so I think that's where it hurts him. Francis was an integral part of both of his championships.
Right. 3 Cups or 3 Cups, though.
3 Cups or 3 Cups, and he made he played with great players, but he made them better.
But but here's the thing, and this is where, and I like Mark Recchi a lot, and for a guy who had over 100 points more than once, I believe.
His postseason numbers are awesome.
Postseason numbers are ridiculous.
The problem is, go and look at those teams, and then tell me where Mark Recchi ranks on those teams.
All right.
That's
what year did he win the Cup?
Well, he was definitely one of the best players on Carolina when he won the Cup.
He was like he was like the 5th best player. That's the thing.
I don't know about that. I mean,
Francis was better.
All right, maybe. I mean, Francis
Ward was better.
I mean, obviously he was low down on the, but there's guys like go to like Glenn Anderson and.
But that shouldn't matter who he played with. I mean, you look at
We're talking 2006 with Carolina. Brindamore was better.
Glenn Wesley.
All right.
I'm just saying.
Glenn Wesley. No, not Glenn Wesley. No.
Glenn Wesley was huge on that team.
No.
Wasn't better than Mark Recchi. I'm with Dan on that one.
No.
Okay.
I'm with Dan on that one. He was not better.
That's fine. But he's probably the 5th most important player on that team.
And then he was on Pittsburgh, obviously, and put up a lot of points there.
Where does he rank on Pittsburgh?
Well, number 2 behind Lemieux.
Probably number 2.
Lemieux, Yager, Coffey.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Yager was very young. He was not a big contributor. He was
not yet.
And
Recchi was a huge contributor that year.
How many
113
points does Mark Recchi have?
How many what?
Postseason awards.
Yeah.
Which Goring has a Conn Smythe. He's not a Hall of Famer.
I know, but I'm just saying these are things.
Ken Nielsen is not a Hall of Famer, so he's 12th in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just when you look at this list, I mean,
9th all time in points.
Like Adam Oates just got in, right? So looking at Adam Oates, he's number 17 on the all-time list.
Adam Oates suffers from the same thing too. Recchi has more cups than Adam Oates, but
Recchi will get in a slow year.
Adam Oates played in an era when scoring was high. He was mainly an assist guy, and unfortunately, that does get washed away a bit.
But wouldn't you say Recchi had a better career than Adam Oates?
No.
When do we consider the NHL to be in its dead puck era?
Microphone.
I just changed it too.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's weird. Do it again. Okay.
Oh, let me just.
When do we consider the dead puck era for hockey?
95.
Yeah, like 95 is when the Devils destroyed hockey for a couple years. Yeah.
Okay,
well,
so
in 2000 it was pretty dead again too for like 3 years.
Okay, so from 95 to 2000, Recchi had 78, 80, 74, 91, and 77 points.
Yeah, I know.
1,500 points don't lie.
I know, but here's the thing: Adam Oates, Mark Recchi, neither of them have any awards. They have 0 awards.
No, I know, but
there's plenty of compilers in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
But
yeah,
Oates
Oates
just got into the Hall of Fame, right? So I mean, we're looking at Oates is in the Hall of Fame.
Recchi will go in a slow year.
Ken Nielsen's stats were WHA NHL combined, so that's why.
Okay, that's why.
Yeah, I mean when you look at this list, I mean Yari Curry's on this list. He was a compiler, right?
No, his prime.
No.
Yeah, he wasn't the best player on his team.
So what? I mean,
Yari Curry.
The guy who was the best player on his team is one of the top 2.
How many awards did he win?
Yeah, how many awards did Curry win?
Let's see.
He won a Lady Byng, right?
Yeah, he definitely won that.
Maybe.
You win a Selke?
But the Lady Byng is, that's Lady Byng.
But your point, you can't say that, Mike. So he played with Gretzky. Recchi played with Lemieux.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, and Recchi was equally as important to Lemieux as Curry was to Gretzky for those couple years there. So,
but hold on. Yari Curry had 71 goals, 68 goals. Let's not even bring him up in this conversation. It's not even fair. Lady Byng is his only award, but he also played on a team that was just littered with great guys. But he didn't have 71 goals by accident.
Okay,
he had less points than Curry, though.
There are players in the top 50 of all time that have probably no chance of making the Hall of Fame right now.
Mark Recchi, the 1990-91 Penguins, Mark Recchi led the team in scoring.
Okay.
Rod Brindamore is not making the Hall of Fame.
No.
Vincent Domfus is not making the Hall of Fame.
All right, so let's name the other current guys in the top. The other current guys in the top 50 right now.
Mark Recchi's postseason numbers are not even a point a game, where Yari Curry is like 233 points in 200 games. In the postseason, you should be a point a game if you want to be in the Hall of Fame.
They played in different eras.
Oh, okay. But listen, point a game guys are point a game guys. You don't think Yager's a point a game in the playoffs? He played way all through that era.
Number 25 all time is Joe Thornton. Is Joe Thornton going in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Number 35 all time is Jerome McGinley. Is Jerome McGinley going in the Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Number 58 is Marian Hossa. Is Marian Hossa going in the Hall of Fame?
Maybe.
Yes.
Yes. Right. So I mean, when you look at those are top in the top, 50, 60 players.
Stanley Cups.
Yeah, I mean, but Recchi deserves to be in the Hall of Fame as much as Joe Thornton does.
And he's been in 6 Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean,
Hossa's definitely in the Hall of Fame.
Most likely, Hossa will get in.
Yeah,
Recchi's going to get in on a slow year. That's what it is.
Yeah, and Andrew Chuck is going to get in too.
But there's nobody else on this list. Let's go top: Gretzky, Messier, Yager, Howe, Francis. Dion, Iserman, Lemieux, Sakic, Esposito, Bork, Recchi, Coffey, Makita, Solani, Trache, Oates, Gilmore, Howardchuk, Curry. The only one that's not in there is Recchi.
The problem is Recchi also was hanging on at points in his career.
Yes, he did hang on the last couple seasons. I agree.
And that doesn't look good when you're trying to get voted in the Hall of Fame. They do look at that.
I mean, the one thing.
So was Paul Coffey.
Points per.
Come on.
Hey, if Dino Cicerelli's in the Hall of Fame, Mark Recchi's got.
And so is Dale Howardchuk, but these players are a notch above Mark Recchi, way above.
Mark Recchi has the lowest points per game of anybody in the top 20 of the NHL of NHL scoring, 0.93.
All right, points per game. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I buy into the fact he was a compiler. He was a really good one, and I just think when there's when there's a slow year, they're going to put him in. That's what it is.
Did he go to more Stanley Cup Finals than anybody else on this list? I mean, hey, how many Stanley Cup Finals did Recchi go to?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Robert Horry in the NBA went to 1 million NBA Finals. He was never going to make it to the Hall of Fame.
Robert Horry, averaged 40 points a game. Recchi has 1,500 points.
Yeah. I mean, and I think, I
think Pierre Turgeon's a Hall of Famer too, and he's not in.
No,
I think Alex Mogilny's a Hall of Famer.
Now, Mogilny, you could make a Hall of Famer because of the other things in his career. Same with Kent Nielsen. I do think WHA stats should count. I do think when you defect, you have to sort of take that into account where the guy missed how many years of his career. I think those things do. So I do agree with you on Mogilny, and I do agree on Kent Nielsen. I do.
I covered those two teams, Carolina and Boston, in the Stanley Cup Finals, and and I think Recchi was a really important part of both of those teams.
Boston for sure. Carolina, I'm going to tell you, I don't think he was as important on Carolina as you're making him out to be. I'm not saying he had a bad year. I'm just saying there were other bigger guys. Brendan Moore was the biggest.
I kind of blocked out that finals because I was so butthurt that the Hartford Whalers were in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Right.
Russ, he was a late season addition. They got him.
No, I know.
So was Doug Waite.
That's what and so was Doug Waite. And Doug Waite wasn't even a huge part of that. He wasn't.
Is Doug Waite a Hall of Famer?
No.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I don't think so. But I don't know. I think Mark Recchi is. I think if
for Boston, Recchi had 14 points. That was a big deal. I don't know how many points he had for Carolina, but I don't think it was nearly as many. Let's say.
Yeah, so if you want to say he's a hanger on, his final year was one of his best playoff years he had.
7 points he had for Carolina.
Yeah, but 16 in the playoffs. He had 16 in 25 games. That was pretty good.
And then he went right back to Pittsburgh for 2 more years.
Yeah.
But I mean, so in his final year, if you want to call him a hanger on, his final thing in the playoffs, he was fantastic. I mean, he was not hanging on.
14 points in 25 games.
At that point, he wasn't hanging on. The 2 or 3 years prior, he was.
Yeah, when he was playing for Atlanta.
Yeah.
He still had 48 points his last full season, though. That's pretty good.
I'm for Andreychuk getting in the Hall of Fame. I am for Recchi getting in the Hall of Fame. But there are certain people who have been put in the Hall of Fame who I don't think belong. Bernie Federko is borderline. Clark Gillies is borderline. Not because Clark Gillies wasn't an effective player, but,
Here's a funny thing about the Carolina team. Ray Whitney had more goals. Corey Stillman had more points. Yep. Justin Williams, we forget about.
Hey, Mike. Mike, can you tell Trevor Gillies he's not a Hall of Famer?
Eric Stahl had 28 points. So, really, Recchi was like the 6th or 7th most important guy. Doug Waite had as many points as Mark Recchi in that Stanley Cup run. So, I can't count him for the Carolina run. He wasn't –
No, but what he did around – I mean, the experience he brought to that – I mean, he was their Stanley Cup experience. I mean, he was the guy who had won the Cup. He was the guy who was – and that matters on those teams. Laviolette will tell you that. I mean, that mattered a lot to that team. They needed a guy like that who had been through it all. And not only was he putting up points, but he was huge. Like when you looked in the locker room, he was the guy that they all looked to. I mean, he was the guy. Even Brendan Moore and Recchi were the 2 guys.
That's fair, but I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame based on that. I think he has a chance, but there are other guys that have had similar careers. Not as many points, but if you count like the eras and the points per game and everything, there's a lot of guys that have had similar careers. They just haven't been to as many finals.
Well, obviously, the people who vote on the Hall of Fame agree with you, but I don't. I just don't. I think Recchi was sort of his own. He wasn't a great publicist for himself.
No, he wasn't.
I think that plays into it. There's some other guys on there that were more flashy, more public. You know, like Doug Gilmour is a good example. You know, like I mean, he didn't have a great deal of success in the playoffs. You know, but he
well, he had a great deal of he won a Stanley Cup with Calgary in '89. He played well with St. Louis. But what made Gilmour's career were those 2 conference final appearances with the Leafs.
Yeah.
So those are more important than going to the finals and win the cup.
If Recchi had been a Leaf and taken him to a Stanley Cup final, he would be in the Hall of Fame. You know,
he is.
No.
Okay,
if Recchi took him to the Stanley Cup final.
Oh, yeah.
Gilmour also hung on at the end too.
Here, this is emblematic of his career. Okay, in 1989-90 for the Calder voting, and Recchi had a hell of a year. He really did. Makarov came in first, Madonna second, Roenick third, Brindamore fourth, then Recchi. He's always 4th or 5th on the list.
Right.
How many points did he have as a rookie?
He had like 80 points.
Yeah.
He had 67.
67, sorry.
Yeah.
30 goals. But it's, again, that era.
Right. He holds the record for the most points by a Flyer in a single season.
Yes, he does.
Mark Recchi does. He had, 116 or something like that in that area? It's kind of crazy. So, I mean, that's big. I mean, that's a big number. 116 points in a season.
It is.
In any era. You know, that was a big number. I know that at the time, Gretzky was putting up 216 points. So it was a little, you know, but actually not at that time that Recchi did that, right? That was after that. So,
it's funny, though, Darren Turcotte had 1 point less than Mark Recchi in his rookie year. So it does show you, not to rip on Darren Turcotte, but it does show you how points were plentiful for a long time. And that's a thing that hurts them.
Right. I agree. So players of the week before we get out of here.
Yep.
Steve Mason got player of the week. So this is interesting. You know, we talked about the Flyers' difference. He's the number 1 player of the week, followed by Tarasenko and another goalie who I just escaped me for a second there. Who's the other goalie that got there?
Marty Jones.
Yes, Martin Jones. So 2 goalies. A lot of goalies.
I was going to say, there was a great video of Tarasenko when he got his hat trick. Everybody was throwing their hats on the ice, and he was really smiling. He was looking at it, and he was smiling. And this is a guy who just loves to play. But conversely, Mike and I were talking, and recently he was at a situation where, again, fans thought somebody had a hat trick, and they didn't. This happened with Braden Shen a year ago with the
Mike
Flyers.
Green last night.
And so I'm cautioning fans.
Happened last night.
Throw your hat unless you're stone cold know the guy has a hat trick. If you think somebody else scored the goal or you think video review is going to ruin it, don't waste your $30 hat.
I'm sorry. I'm not throwing my hat. This hat was like $27.
Right.
I threw my hat on the ice once, and I'll tell you why. Because I watched Kent Manderville score a hat trick for the Hartford Whalers, and the third goal for the hat trick was a penalty shot goal in a tie game with a minute left. I was like, you know what? Kent Manderville just had a hat trick and a penalty shot. I'm like, my hat's going for that. That's fine.
And it was your first beer, but otherwise, yeah.
No. I was not old enough. No, they moved when I was 17.
Kent Manderville went to school and actually dated a friend of my wife's.
Wow. Unlike Chris Pronger, 17 and 18-year-olds in Hartford weren't allowed in the bars.
Oh, don't start with that.
It's a true story.
My memory of Kent Manderville was getting deked out of his jock by Gretzky in Game 7 in '93. So
he's not the only one that's happened to.
No, yeah. He's a good Cornell kid. So
I'll never forget that. Kent Manderville.
He was a good penalty killer. He played on that '97 Flyers team, right? He was a good penalty killer, man.
Yeah. But the instance that Russ was talking about, I was at the Marlies Hartford Wolfpack game on Saturday, and it was the Marlies annual teddy bear toss. Whatever they
right.
For the first goal, everybody throws the teddy bears, and it's to give to kids for Christmas.
It's a great promotion.
And the only problem was the Marlies were down 3-0 in the third period, and there was no first goal to celebrate. And then there's a disputed goal, and you don't know whether the goal went over the goal line, and people started throwing the teddy bears because that might have been the only chance that they had. It went to video review, and the announcer was basically saying, "Don't throw your bears on the ice because they could get penalized for And then
Any
finally,
ref who gives them a penalty for that should be shot.
and then finally they said it was a goal, and the teddy bear raining down. I have a picture of it on my Twitter feed, so if you want to take a look, it's there.
That's awesome.
I was told by some of the guys in the Sound Tigers that they feel pressure on those dates to score a goal early and get those Bears on the ice. But the great thing with those is when you see the videos of what happens afterwards, and I see them go, it's great.
And I do want to push for the NHL to put chips in pucks, because I'm telling you, the Blackhawks had a goal taken away from them in that Flyer game, and it did change the complexion of the game.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, they need. It's so easy to do.
It's not that hard. No, it will not even increase the price of the puck that much.
Maybe for the first year, but once they start churning them out, it won't matter.
Yep.
Yeah, no, totally. That's all the time we have for today. But guys, thanks so much. Thanks, Dan, so much for jumping on today. Thanks, Russ and Mike, as always. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We'll be back again tomorrow. Have a good day. See you then.